everyone! In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use the editing panel here in Lightroom. So let's first start by opening an image to edit and then finding our editing panel, which will be at the top of the toolbar here on the right. Once I select that, you're going to notice that there are a lot of different options here and a lot of different sliders here that we can mess with. First, I'm going to start by showing you some of the manual options. And we do have presets here at the top. We'll get back to those in a minute. But the rest of these sliders are all manual options, meaning you can adjust all of these things individually yourself, which can be a little bit overwhelming, but they're all very simple and very intuitive to use. So let's go ahead and start with light. Very basic here. You can adjust things like exposure, bring out whites and blacks in your image, adjust highlights and shadows, and add more contrast. So let's say this is my original image here, and the exposure's not bad, but maybe I could brighten it up just a little bit. If you've got an image overexposed, you can darken it a little bit. You can add contrast, which is going to bring out the darker and the lighter tones in your image. Highlights is going to bring out more of those lighter tones. Shadows, you can darken them or lighten them in the image. I kind of like lighting them. Look at the details it brings. All right, you can adjust individually the whites in your image and make them whiter. So notice this kind of takes out the color of the sky, which I don't like. So if I ever want to reset a slider, I can just double tap on the circle and it will reset. And then blacks, I could darken them a little bit. Okay, I think that's already a great basic edit, but we have even more options. Color is a really big one here. You have simple ones such as temperature if you want a warmer or cooler image. I kind of like the warmness there. Tint will also adjust color in a little bit of a different way. You can kind of go more purpley or green. That looks a little bit intense, so I'm going to go ahead and reset that again by double clicking. You could adjust the vibrancy of the colors or even the saturation. If you move the saturation all the way to the left, you're actually going to remove color. And having only a little bit looks pretty cool too, right? I'm going to go ahead and reset that one though, because the next one I want to show you, which is Color Mixer, allows you to adjust a color individually, which is really cool. So right now I've got some orange tones in my image, so if I click on orange out of the options here, I can adjust specifically the oranges in my image. So I can adjust the hue and it can change it to maybe colors similar to orange, like red or yellow. I kind of like what the red looks like. I can adjust just the saturation of those oranges, make those a little bit more saturated or less saturated. And luminance too, which kind of adds like a brightness to it. Now if I want to narrow down the color more specifically, I can use this target option here. And I can actually target a specific color in my image. So let's say maybe more of these like greens. And then with clicking and holding, I can drag and this will adjust the hue. So just a really cool option. I'm kind of liking the blues and reds here in the image right now. Now color grading is going to be a little bit more intense. With this one, you're able to adjust specifically shadows and make those maybe certain colors. So right now shadows are pretty dark, but what if I had them a little bit leaning more towards yellows? You'll notice that all the darker parts of my image are now becoming a little bit more yellow. If I want to go opposite to that and cool it down, I could adjust the blues. And I could do the same thing for midtones, for highlights, or just in general, which is global. So really cool, you can get really detailed with adjusting colors and color grading. We also have things like effects. We can add more texture to our image or less. So notice with less, it kind of softens the image. With clarity, it's going to give you a little bit more detail back in your image. Dehaze. Ooh, that's a fun one. Look at that. Really intense. I kind of like that it makes it look like the sky is glowing, the sun is out. And then vignette is also a really cool one to help to emphasize the center of your image. If you go to the left, it's going to darken the edges, and right is going to brighten. I always think darken looks a little bit better though. And you could also add grain to your image if you're maybe going for a more vintage look. Now this is looking really cool. You can go a little bit further in detail, maybe sharpen the image a little bit, reduce the noise, reduce the color noise. I don't really get into optics and geometry, but you can mess with that on your own. And to be honest, I think this is a pretty cool edit. Now I'd like to see what it looks like originally, and you have that option here near the bottom. And notice right here, if I hover over it, it says Show Original. So if I click on that, here's my original image. If I click on it again, here's the edits I've made so far. I actually like it. I think it's a cool edit. Kind of intense, but cool. So that was great, but let's talk about presets, because presets are really cool. These are made for you, and you can actually adjust them just like we did here manually if you want to. So let's go ahead and reset the edits here, even though I like them. I have the option, I could go through all of these and I could like double click on each circle and reset all the individual edits, but that would be really time consuming. So on the editing panel, I'm going to click on the three little dots here instead, and I can just simply reset the edits on my whole image and take it back to the original. Now, if I ever did that accidentally, I could always do Control-Z to undo, but that was on purpose. So let's talk about presets. You've got a couple options at the top here. One of them is auto, and this will give you automatic settings. Notice that all the sliders changed on my toolbar again, and this is what Lightroom think will make my photo look the best. So maybe auto is a good place to start, and then you can always adjust further. I'm going to go ahead and undo that with Control-Z. Now black and white, which is the B and W, gives you black and white options. First, it's going to turn your image black and white, and then you can still further adjust any of the editing panel options. I'm going to undo one more time so that we can get into the actual presets. Okay, now we have a couple different options here. The first one is recommended, which is really cool because Lightroom is going to analyze your photo and recommend to you a bunch of different preset options. And again, these are all edits that were either made by Lightroom editing people or real people that you can use and further adjust, which is really cool. It will give you a little snapshot here on the right of what your image will look like, but you can also hover over them and see it a little bit better on your own image. If you like an edit, like I like this one with the more blue in the sky, but I don't necessarily like the detail lost in there, so I can hover over this, and if I like it, I can click on it, and I could further edit in the editing panel, or I can click on more like this. And then Lightroom's going to narrow it down even more, because there are like thousands of presets available. To click on one, and I could adjust the amount of that preset I want to use. Do I just want it to affect my image a little bit, a lot of it, all the way? Kind of like it somewhere in the middle. And then you can even further continue to manually edit in the editing panel. Really, really cool. Now you can also narrow it down. We chose to pick something similar to that one I liked, but there's also options here at the top if you want maybe a subtle or a strong preset. Did you want black and white? Are you looking for more of a cooler, warm preset, dark, bright, cinematic? I mean, there's tons of different options. You also have this premium one here, which narrows it down a little bit more specifically into like portraits and subject matter. And you can go ahead, it's narrowed down very specifically and has multiple presets within it. Now you also have this other section called Yours. Now if you ever go into the Discover section, which we'll do in a moment, and the Discover section, let's go ahead and go in there. I'm going to go ahead and go back into my big view here of Lightroom and go ahead and find Discover there on the left. Now Discover, you have all kinds of people that are all in Lightroom. These are all maybe photographers, editors, students, people that upload their own photos, and they basically show you how they edited their image, and they allow you to use their own edits. And notice as I hover over images, it shows you the original, and when I don't hover over it, it shows you what their edit looks like. Really, really cool. So I'm really liking this one here. I like the adjustment of color. I think it's dramatic, but still effective. So I can click on Save Preset. I also want to show you if you click on it, that it will show you here what the person has done to make that edit, and then you can just press Save Preset. Now when I do that, I can save which ones I like, I can name it. I'm going to go ahead and leave all those settings the same and just click Save. So now when we go back into the image we were editing before, back in the Editing tab, back in Presets, and now in the Yours section, since I saved that from the Discover section of Lightroom, I'll find it here. And when you click on it, you can use it, and you can still adjust it manually in the Editing section. All right, now that's basically it, but I want to show you a couple other things that are really cool. So not only can you save a preset that you like, but you could actually copy any of the editing settings, any of your editing settings, and use them on any of your other images. So let's say that I like this one, but maybe I want to adjust one thing so I can make it a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the greens a little bit. Okay, so I used the preset from the Discover page, edited a little bit myself, and I'm like, that's cool, I like it, I want to use this in another photo. Great. I can either use the keyboard shortcut for copy, which is Control-C, and if I do that on my keyboard, you'll see it says Copy Edit Settings, or you can come to the three dots on the toolbar and do the same thing, Copy Edit Settings. Now if I go back into the album view, where I have this image, I can paste this edit on any of the images in this album. So this is a similar one, but I'm going to do one that's not very similar. So like, let's say this image. I can either do Control-V on my keyboard, which I'll go ahead and do, which will paste the settings, and notice the change is automatic. Or I could have opened it up, gone back into the three little dots, and paste it that way. Notice there's a paste edit setting. And let's say I don't like it. I can always reset those edits. Remember, you have the option here to do that. I can also see what the original looked like before. The same buttons down here. And I can also continue in the editing panel and make further adjustments if I'd like to. And that's it for the editing panel.